Welcome back to another episode of Guys Trip. My name is Kyle Depius, and I'm your host. I've got a guest for you today, and he is the founder of Sauna House. And if you guys know me, you know I'm really big on saunas. I'm big on hot and cold. I think it's tremendous. It's helpful for your physical health. And my guest today, Andrew, who founded the company, talks about the impact that sauna had on his mental health. And out of that story, out of that struggle, this company was founded. They're in Asheville, North Carolina. And the model is a franchise model. So if you're in the South or Southeast, you're going to see that name pop up in different cities. And I'm going to give Andrew a chance to talk about that. By the way, if you're interested in the franchise model, I would encourage you to find the website, find Andrew, find his team, and reach out and inquire about that. So we talk about the importance of mental health and physical health and how saunas and cold can help that. Sauna House has trademarked hot, cold, and relax. And so they have a process, they have a method where you get in the sauna, you get in the cold. And if you're at a sauna house, they give you hot tea and you sit on warm or hot furniture. And that's a pretty cool story right there. But I love that process and just encouraging people to have a place to belong, to find a sense of community and to work on their mental and their physical health. Just a beautiful story. I love the business model. I think it's really cool. You're going to enjoy the stories. You're going to enjoy some of the business conversations around it. And of course, if you like sauna, if you like hot, cold, you're really going to enjoy this as well. Find the links in the show notes. And without any further delay, here's my conversation with Andrew at Sauna House.
When most people think of a guy's trip, they think of getting away from their families, partying, and doing questionable things with the bros. This is not that. This isn't about a trip. It's bigger than that. It's a movement. This is a community with one intention in mind: to become better men. I'm your host, Kyle Depius. My guests and I will share the tools and strategies that have allowed us to transform our lives, create freedom, and be the men we want to be. If you're committed to growth for yourself and your family, you're in the right place. This is Guys Trip. All right. Hey, Andrew, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Kyle, thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing well, besides the fact that I lost my voice this week and it's just coming back. But
I did too. I had a cold
did you?
And I coughed like so hard for so long, it took my voice. And that was like a week and a half ago, and I still don't have it back. So
Maybe that's the same virus, because I never get coughs. You know, I do sauna and cold therapy all the time. I hardly ever get sick, but I do have little kids, and I got some virus and I coughed harder than I have in 15, 20 years. And then about a week after that was all kind of gone, I lost my voice.
yeah, same thing, man. So whatever it is, it got us. But I'm thankful that you took some time to talk with us today. I am obviously a huge fan of sauna cold, and I would say that you probably are more so because that's the business that you're in. So I'm excited to learn more about that and to talk more about that. But before we do that, Andrew, if you're cool with it, I wanted to just ask some lightning round, get to know you questions so the listener can understand more about who you are. Are you
Great,
up for
let's
that?
do it.
Okay,
Oh
cool.
yeah, great, let's do it.
We'll go easy to start, and that would be, where were you born and where's currently home?
Yeah, I was born in Abington, Pennsylvania, outside of a small town called Brinathan, Pennsylvania. It's a interesting little community.
Is that north, south, east, west in Pennsylvania? I'm not familiar.
Yeah, it's just northeast of Philadelphia.
Okay. Small town?
Yeah, our town was built around a religion, so I mean, by the definition, I think it would qualify as a cult. But I think I had a really fortunate upbringing, very community centric, very athletic driven town. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the education I got and the upbringing I got in that town. But it was certainly a unique atmosphere.
Yeah. And you're in Asheville, correct? North Carolina right now?
Yep. Now I'm based in Asheville, North
Okay.
Carolina.
And so you said kids. How many
Hmm.
kids? What are their ages? And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yep, I have two daughters, 3 and 5. My first daughter was born 2 months before we opened the business. My second daughter, we found out that we were going to have her about 4 days before we closed for COVID. So, really intense 5 years we've been through.
Yeah, your timing is wonderful on that
Yep.
stuff. Well, okay,
Yep.
let's talk. Your 5-year-old would get this. So if I had a chance to chat with your 5-year-old and I said, "Tell me about your dad," what would be a couple things she would say to describe who you are?
Well, what I hope she would say is that the dad's funny. I like to play with my kids a lot. When I'm home, I'm totally off technology, but to be fair, I'm not home that often. I work a lot these days, but I spend a lot of time with them on weekends and different activities. I think they would say I'm really fun and that I like to do stuff. And I know that they talk about the fact that I work hard, because they know I'm gone at work a lot.
Do they like to sauna with you?
Yeah, they do, especially the little one.
Oh, cute.
We just got back we went on a family ski trip to Durango and went to Purgatory, and there's a wonderful facility there called Durango Hot Springs, about 15 minutes from the resort. And you can bring children to one section of the hot springs there. And our little one was obsessed. She was so excited to be bathing with us.
That's fun. Are you married, Andrew?
I am, yeah.
So if I asked your wife, same question, tell me a couple things about your husband, Andrew, what would she say? If she had 3 words to describe you, what would she say?
Three things: intense, don't take things too seriously, and thinks he knows everything.
Well,
You
you
know?
could ask her after this podcast or at some point today or this weekend. Hey, these are the 3 things I said. Would you agree with that? I'd be curious what she says.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for playing that little game with me. Were you in? You said that the town you grew up in, smaller town, Pennsylvania, near outside Philly, was a sports town. Were you into sports growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I played ice hockey and lacrosse since the time I can remember. Those were my big two sports growing up, and my goal was to become a Division 1 athlete or go pro. Unfortunately, I started struggling with alcoholism in my late teens, and that's a big part of my story. Um, you know, so I hung up the cleats and the skates when I was around 20.
Got it. What do you miss about playing sports in high school, maybe at a higher level, a competitive level? Like, what do you miss about that as compared to where your life is now?
Yeah, I miss the team. I love being around a group of guys who are all having a good old time in the locker room, and a group of people who's really focused on accomplishing
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
which truly Sauna House has become that for me. As the company's grown, we've been able to recruit and build a phenomenal team, and it's been absolute number one joy of my life, outside of my family and my children, is the company.
I love that. Well, here's a question that will lead us down the track of that topic. I would assume, but I don't want to assume. If you have you read the book from Dan Sullivan? I think it's Who Not How, where he talks about the integrator and the visionary person. Those two almost
Yeah,
opposite giftings.
yeah,
I
yeah.
assume you're the visionary type person, but am I wrong?
No, you're correct. And
Okay.
Jen would be my counterpart.
Yes. Okay. So that was my question. Is so for someone like myself, I'm very like my core strengths would be a visionary. It's someone who who sees the possibilities first and doesn't really see everything else. And I can get myself in trouble because I will just start running and without thinking about things in the way. And usually that leaves a wake of not so amazing things. How have
I
you been
get it.
able to find the right partner to help balance that visionary and integrator?
Luck. Yeah. Yeah. So when I was building Sauna House, my wife and I were working on it, but then she got pregnant and she was very sick. I was building a website in this coffee shop every day, and I heard this wonderful woman serving drinks to people, and she connected with people so fluently and quickly, and she was infectious. I just wanted to get to know her, and that was Jen. And I asked her to come see my warehouse full of 2x4s that I was building into sauna house.
Yeah.
After we became kind of more friendly over time, and she came and checked it out and met my wife, and then she became our first employee. Jen trusted me from the beginning, and I mean, she was young. She was just out of Chapel Hill. She's really sharp. I always said from the beginning, I just said, I'll make sure people come in the door. You run the place. And, she took over operations really from that day. And now she's our chief operating officer, co-founder, and a business partner. And I feel extraordinarily lucky to have her.
That's
and they
amazing.
they say it takes 5 doers to 1 dreamer. And so now I have Jen, Gavin, Chris, Peter, Katie, Mira, and they're all, back behind the vision, pushing this along while I cook up a new mess.
I've never heard that. 5 doers to 1 dreamer, you said. Okay. I need several more doers to put around me then, because I'm short of that number. That's funny. Well, thanks for sharing that quick little story. Last one on the get to know yous, and it's going to be a bit of a curveball. But if I had said, all right, Andrew, I'd love for you to put together a TED Talk, but I'd love for you to talk about something that you're not well known for, so we got to take sauna off the table. What would you like to talk about?
I would definitely pick the intersection of mental health and spirituality. So I would talk about Stoicism, Buddhism, AA, and sort of bring it all together of this mindfulness and mental health practice, and how all these different tools, when you start studying this stuff, so much of it says the same thing, just differently. And it's all about how you hear it. If you're on that journey, don't stop seeking, because there's someone who's talked about it in a way that you can hear it. So I'd probably talk about that.
I like that. Okay, cool. Let's do a jumping off point to get into your story now. So maybe pick us up from whenever formal education ended for you, and kind of like how if you were in, I don't know if you, as an entrepreneur, you probably haven't been in a while at least. If you were in an interview and someone said, all right, Andrew, walk me through your resume from a high level. Similarly, could you walk us through from a high level your story as it relates to professionally speaking, from how you got to where you are now and you came from wherever formal education ended?
Yeah. So growing up, my father is a phenomenal manager and doer. And so I was the dreamer and he was the doer. But he taught me a lot about work ethic, and all of his friends, and he owned small businesses of different types. So I was surrounded by entrepreneurs, but very blue collar, construction, landscaping, these types of businesses. And so my first business was hustling golf balls. I started selling golf balls. My house was close to a golf course, and I collected the balls and then would sell them. And I remember a golfer coming up to me one time and saying, "Hey, this is how you sell," right? And he taught me about sales and packages and lemonade with 4 balls, buy 4 for $1, things like this. So I remember that very fondly. And then from there, I went into auto detailing in high school. I had my own car washing company, which was very lucrative for a high schooler. Then, my parents really wanted me to go to college, but I was, I had already decided I wasn't going to play sports anymore, and I was already struggling with alcoholism. So I figured I should keep going with that and go to CU Boulder and snowboard and party. So I did that, and that lasted 2 years before I had to drop out. And I moved back home, and I took a job managing the ice rink that I grew up playing at. And then I also kicked up the car washing business again. And so, I was running the company. I was running both those businesses and drinking and really struggling though with my mental health and depression and anxiety at that time. Um, yeah, so and then I got sober. So
Mm,
that
good for
was
you.
that was my early education in business and school. I really don't learn very well in a school environment. Um, so it's just not really for me.
How long have you been sober, Andrew?
I've been sober now 11 years, so I had one relapse after the first time. And so in total, I think I've been sober, 13, 14 years. Yeah, out of my adult life, which is phenomenal for me and my
Yeah,
family and everyone
yeah.
around me.
Good
So,
for you. Yeah, congratulations.
yeah.
Just a side note on that, if the listeners have been paying attention to my story, I had November 27th was the day I took some time off drinking. My plan was I need at least 6 months off. And so I am coming up on 5 months here soon. But now it's kind of like, oh, gosh, I really don't feel the need, anymore. And so maybe I'll just continue. I don't know yet, but I'll be 44 soon. And let's just say, for the sake of math, I started drinking at, 20. That's 24 years of 44 years that so like, I think my body needs a break. And so
That's
the
great.
more, the more I share with people, the more it feels like, and here's I guess, a question for you. The more I share that journey with people, the more people are curious to start their own journey, and or people have been sober for a while. And so I feel like this is really starting to gain momentum. Sobriety, taking extended time off, really kind of kicking alcohol out of someone's lifestyle is a thing. Do you experience the same?
For sure. I see the trend happening and I read a lot of stuff. Gen Z, for instance, drinks very little alcohol. People are quitting, people are becoming more curious about their relationship with it. And that's what I encourage, just get curious about it and observe your behavior and your thoughts around these things. There's a phenomenal book called Unwinding Anxiety. If you haven't read it, it's by Judson Brewer. And he's a neuroscientist, and I think he's at Brown University now. He studies the intersection of mindfulness and addiction. And he wrote two books. One is called The Craving Mind, and the other is Unwinding Anxiety. And they're both phenomenal books for anyone who wants to get curious about it and have some tools on how to create better habits and more mindfulness around any kind of substance, sugar, dopamine, right? We're all dopamine seeking machines. And so get curious about which dopamine driver is for you.
You said such a important thing there. You said relationship with alcohol. And I think if people can at least draw and increase their awareness to their relationship with things like that, I think that's the most powerful thing. And so I read a book called This Naked Mind. And then I listened to the Andrew Huberman podcast on the effects of alcohol on the body and the brain. I was like,
Yep.
whoa. So I
Yeah,
think just
that was a
increasing
good
your
one.
knowledge and awareness, I think, is most important. So I appreciate you sharing that in your story. Let's bring a listener up to speed on how you got to Sauna House. So can you kind of pick up your story then on how Sauna House started?
Sure. So my wife and I were living in the Bay Area. We wanted to have kids and we wanted to be closer to her family when we did that. So they're all here in North Carolina, and we picked Asheville because it's got great mountain biking, which was a requirement for me. And we got to Asheville and I was pedaling around in the woods and I met this awesome eccentric ER doctor who like goes to Burning Man every year and like phenomenal guy. And I was looking for buildings at the time to launch this sauna bathing concept because I had fallen in love with the culture while being, international and in the Bay Area. I had been using sauna and cold therapy for a couple years at the time, which, the number one reason I got into it was for mental health. I quickly noticed it changed my anxiety and depression. Other effects, which are also positive, happened for me, but those were the real drivers. And so when we got here, and I was pedaling around, that gentleman introduced me to the owner of the building that we're now in today. And I just feel so lucky because I saw the building and I love the building, but I never thought in a million years I would have it, the money or the landlord would believe in me, um, to make it happen, and it just did. And so my wife and I invested our life savings and then more from friends and family and a local lender, Mountain BizWorks, to get the entire thing done. And we launched a year to the day after leasing the building. And then, we got closed for COVID at month 13. So it was tough timing, but COVID was a phenomenal teacher. I look back at that time and I'm really proud of the behaviors and the things I communicated with my employees and my team and my lenders and my landlords. Yeah, it was a tough time, but a great teacher. We learned how to run our business a lot more effectively because of it. It forced us to get very focused.
So you would have opened Sauna House in 2019, like the beginning of 2019. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Feb 1, 2019.
Okay. So first off, Andrew, I have to get this off my chest. Justin Juntanen of Cedar and
Yep.
Stone Sauna. I had him on the
Yep.
podcast. He says sauna. I cannot get it out of my head.
Oh, yeah.
I can't say it that way. So I say sauna. It sounds like you do too.
Yeah.
Are we committing
Sauna.
Are we committing a cardinal sin here by calling it sauna?
Only if you're an extraordinarily proud Finnish boy.
Okay.
You
All right,
know?
good. I'm not. I'm Irish, French, Luxembourg, and German, so I don't have a lick of that in me. So I'm saying sauna. Okay, I'm good. I want to get that off my chest and
You
put it
know.
out there. Okay.
Come on, everybody
yeah.
says things differently everywhere in the world.
That's right. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Sauna culture is a real thing, and they're very proud of their history of the wooden box.
That's right. Okay. So thanks for letting me get that off my chest. So Sauna House, let's talk a little bit about that. So the space that you have, can you maybe just kind of, someone who has never seen it, someone who's maybe not on your website right now, like walk us through the experience and maybe talk about the building a little bit, what they can expect when they walk through.
Sure. Well, I love architecture and construction. So this old historic building was a cold, dark shell. And we did everything to it to create this space. So upon entry, you're coming through these beautiful, large double doors that we had custom made by a local craftsman. And there's floating plant trays above you. So there's plants drooping down from the sky as you move through the space. And then you're welcomed by our hospitality team. At check-in, we require everyone to shower before entering the public bathing space, which is proper sauna etiquette, in my opinion. And so you have your own locker, your own shower, but we have an all genders locker room. So there's no men's or women's. Everyone's in the same space, but anywhere you need to be naked, you have a private room for that. Everyone showers and changes into their bathing suit. We're all genders all the time. And then after showering, we encourage everyone to do a specific circuit, which I developed early on just based on the data that I saw that was available and that was intuitive to me. And I wanted something that delivered results in a very simple but wonderful way. So after the shower, you move into the big public sauna upstairs, 10 to 15, 20 minutes perhaps if you're an extreme guy or gal. And then rinsing shower and followed by the cold pool. And then after, 3 to 4 or 5 minutes in the cold pool, we encourage folks to rest and rehydrate on heated furniture and have tea and other things like that. And then we have another one of those same circuits downstairs, but in a silent environment. And that way, folks who are looking for a little calm and more restoration, not as much socializing, they can use the silent sauna. We have those two public circuits of hot, cold, relax, and some lounge space and tea services and things like that. And the average visit, is 2 hours. So some people will spend 90 minutes to 2 hours is probably the most frequent amount of time.
So I think if I looked at your website correctly, you guys have trademarked. Is it hot, cold, relax? Is that kind of the you call it like a routine? That's the process that you encourage people to go through.
Yeah, that's the circuit, and it's going to evolve as the science evolves most likely. But it's still very, very early days in the science. And, people look at different studies that are out there, but, For instance, Susanna Solberg's study that came out, it was very well publicized and whatnot, but there was only 8 participants in the study and one got thrown out. So
Hmm.
the data there is pretty soft. There's just jumbled data, and I'm interested to see what the researchers can put out over the next 10 years, which I think will really help inform treatment, especially for different outcomes or conditions, right? So there's a historic study of bathology, which is around time and temperature of water for different ailments. And so there's, an ancient body of work around this, but it's not like a scientifically proven. It's more sort of Eastern medicine, I would say. And yeah, there's some interesting stuff in there.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
And did I hear you say heated furniture? Like what is, walk us through what that is. I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
It's a manufacturer called Galanter and Jones out of California, and they build cast concrete heated benches that are really wonderful. And they just provide like this great warm up experience after a cold plunge where you can connect with your friends or loved ones. Um, and warm up, so you're naturally warming up, but you do get a little extra warmth on your back and butt, so people really enjoy them.
I like that. Well, you know what I like about what you're creating is a sense of belonging, a sense of community for people. And I think we live in a very disconnected world, and people are not finding a sense of connection and belonging in different structures outside of maybe work and outside of their house, and they're disconnected. And I think anyone who's creating a sense of belonging and a sense of community is going to do extremely well. And then on top of that, you're adding helping someone improve their physical health, their mental health, spiritual health. And I think that's really powerful. So you guys are in Asheville,
Yeah.
but if someone jumps to your website, they will see that the business model is franchise opportunities as well. Can you speak to where someone might start to see sauna houses pop up? Like what's in the pipeline, if you're okay to talk about those things?
We have 2 active projects that are corporate stores in Charlotte and Durham, and those will open late summer this year. They're just like V1 to V2, everything upgraded and improved. It's going to be a really cool to see those come to life for me. I've wanted to build new facilities for a really long time, and yeah, it's amazing to see them starting to come to life. And then we have one down in Florida, Bonita Springs, that will also open. Great franchise owner there. I love Rob and Gwen. Shout out to them. And they have an amazing wellness journey story and are excited to bring the sauna and cold therapy to Bonita Springs. We also have Raleigh secured. So Raleigh will get an awesome location coming very soon. And then Knoxville, I'm actually hopping in the car after this podcast to go see those franchise owners. Shout out to Peter and Diana. They're wonderful folks who came to us as customers first. They're architects, and they're building a really wonderful facility in the downtown old district of Knoxville, Greenville, South Carolina. So Woody and Rachel are launching that store this year, which is really exciting. And then Taylor and Ashley are taking down a Denver location. They haven't secured their property yet, so we're still hunting for the right building in the Denver market. But all the others have secured their real estate and will be delivering Q1 of next year. So 3 and 24 opening, and then it's starting to line up where probably a store per month opens in all of 2025, which is really amazing. So
Cool.
yeah.
Are most franchise owners looking to retrofit existing buildings? I mean, it sounds like that was how the original sauna house started. Is that what the most common plan and path is?
Yeah, we do. Oh, I forgot to mention Charleston, South Carolina. We have Charleston coming too, and There's multiple stores opening in the Charleston market under a wonderful franchise owner named Susie McCrary. Um, she's an experienced spa operator, and I'm really excited. But she's doing a ground up new build. So some owners will do ground up new builds where it makes sense. But we prefer to target adaptive reuse historical stuff in most of our premium markets, like downtown centers of the cities we just mentioned. They're all really phenomenal, unique buildings. And so they're complicated, very expensive build outs. Um, you know, we're talking about $3 million for 6,000 square feet kind of price point to get open. Um, and so it is challenging. Our franchise partners have to come with a team or well funded in order to produce one of these units. So they're just bathhouses are hard to build. They use a lot of power and a lot of water.
Yeah. Yeah. You just mentioned there, that was my next question actually. In some of the language on the website is bathhouse. Do you think there's a stigma in America with that term? Because I just mentioned it to my wife this morning. She came from a workout, and I was like, I'm talking with Andrew. I sent her the website, and I said bathhouse, and she kind of looked at me funny. And was like, yeah, I think America doesn't use that quite as much as Europe. But is that something that you see as well? Is that kind of a stigma that we almost have here in America?
Definitely, and the history of communal bathing in America is really fascinating. There used to be thousands of bathhouses across the country. In Chicago and New York, no one had running water. Everybody would go work on, hard labor jobs all day, and then they go to the bathhouse and clean themselves before they go home. What happened was during the AIDS epidemic, bathhouses started to get a stigma for like, different sex and things like that at those facilities. And then as the AIDS epidemic came along, there was a lot of press that connected the AIDS epidemic to bathhouse culture, and massive amount of facilities closed during that time, because also no one really knew how AIDS was transmitted, right? And so running water was now much more available. Bathing at home became common practice, and people were really afraid of those environments. So we lost most of our historic bathhouses in America. But it's resurging. People are getting more comfortable with it again. And Europe and Asia obviously is huge cultures around communal bathing facilities. So I think that it's sort of generational too, right? Where the stigma is mostly in my parents' generation.
Yeah. I even think, do you run into, or do franchise owners run into city ordinance issues against communal bathing? Because I think in
Yep.
Minneapolis, because I know some of the
Yep.
guys there,
Yep.
they
Yep.
ran
Yep.
into some city ordinances.
Yes, they
And that
did.
probably too is probably, I don't know what, 40, 50-year-old city ordinances that just haven't been bumped up against. And so I understand what you're saying, because it's probably just a stigma from decades ago.
Yep. And those rules were created because of certain events that took place and certain religions that don't like homosexuality and things like this. So that, yeah, Minneapolis, I'm well aware of the ordinances in Minneapolis. Certain municipalities do have different rules and regulations. I mean, mostly it's the health department and pools, right? And every state has different health department laws around pools. They're very expensive and complicated to navigate. But those rules exist for a good reason. Bodies of water can be very dangerous for a number of different reasons. And, we build all of our facilities code compliant and go through the process the right way, which is very expensive and time consuming.
Do you think that, someone who's maybe on the outside fences of hot, cold, sauna, cold, and they're like, man, this seems to be blowing up. Like, is this just a fad? Is this a thing? Like, is this going to stick around? Can you speak to a little bit about kind of the culture that maybe we've seen over the last handful of years that just seems to be on a rocket ship and everyone's into it and interested in it? We've seen documentaries and all this stuff. And to someone who's like, hey, is this a trend, or is this going to stick around? What are your thoughts on that?
Parts of it will definitely be a trend. I think that private infrared sauna, for instance, there's a lot of private infrared sauna facilities. I think that that'll be a trend. I think sauna and cold therapy is going to stick around for a long time, though, because it's really approachable and it works, right? You just can't deny that you feel better after you do it for most people, the vast majority of people. And the data on cardiac disease for sauna and regular sauna bathing is really good. That was actually a 20-year study out of Finland, several thousand people, which is a big sample size. We know that keeping veins soft and supple is good for human health. And you can do that by expanding and contracting and, things like heat shock proteins and, all the other good stuff from sauna and cold therapy. It delivers results. And so I don't think that part's going to go away. I think we're going to see an evolution of what the consumer wants, just like we see in the fast casual of food, right? People want fresh food, but they don't want to sit around all day. So fast casual evolved, and you see brands like Chipotle get giant, and Sweetgreen and chopped salad and those kinds of things. You're going to see the appetite for the offering evolve, and the price point is going to evolve too, where right now the demand and supply is completely out of whack, right? The supply is very low and the demand is extraordinarily high. So you can put a barrel sauna on the curb with a cold plunge and make money tomorrow. Well, that's not going to be the case for very long, because supply is going up. When there's demand, entrepreneurs meet the supply, and eventually there'll be some kind of saturation, and then people will be shopping for what I believe to be a great experience at a great price point, which is the future I'm trying to participate in.
I love that. Thanks for kind of going into the future a little bit, and what you're seeing, and trends and how that works. And we go back to Econ 101 and demand and supply, because I even think anyone who's interested in hot cold, if they're like, okay, let me look at putting a setup into my house, you're talking about quite a lot of money just to put an existing setup into your house. It's very, very expensive and not affordable for a lot of folks. And I think, to my point earlier, I think people are looking for a place of belonging. And I think the sauna culture creates such a wonderful community of people that you're checking multiple boxes at once with an offering like what you're creating at Sauna House. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool to see the social the social access is really important for me, and a lot of our customers, and a lot of people are customers who have sauna and cold plunges at home, and they still come to Sauna House because we all eat at home, but it's great to go out and have an experience and connect with other people and bring people with you and do things like that. And so I think that great, have it at home too. More sauna, more better for everybody.
That's right. Well, my next question, and we don't need to go too far into the weeds of it, but I have a hard time finding really good, really sound research on infrared versus traditional. Is it just me, or is that actually the case?
That's actually the case.
Okay.
Right. I've never seen one real scholarly journal on infrared sauna.
Yeah. So that kind of answers my question, but I'll let you keep talking.
But I can speak to it anecdotally. So we don't just have the public space. So we have private saunas with their own cold pool too. Those are traditional saunas, but we also offer infrared cabins by themselves. And anecdotally speaking, as someone who's used it a lot and tried it a lot and delivered it to thousands and thousands of customers, you're probably getting a handful of the same benefits as long as the temperature is pretty high in that infrared and the exposure is pretty long. Now there could be negative health side effects that we're unaware of, especially with some of the cheap infrareds. I'd be very careful about the glues and the bonding agents. The vast majority of that stuff is manufactured in Asia, and there's not a lot of governance or oversight into the materials that are being used or the panels that are being used. So I think that there's, a lot to learn in that space still as well. But, certain patients like Lyme disease or fibromyalgia, we see they prefer the infrared over the higher temps, and it seems to be more effective for them as far as treatment goes. But that's still anecdotal, right? So
Yeah.
I'd love to
Yeah.
see research.
Yeah, to your point, that's a good point. Good way to finish that is we'll just have to wait for more research to come out. I just don't think we know enough yet to make a really good informed decision on the whole topic of infrared. So I think that's important to point out. Well, lastly on this topic, Andrew, I'd love for maybe I will link Sauna House and I can link the website and all those things. But someone who just wants to follow along with you guys, is it best to maybe grab the Instagram account and follow along there or check the website? What's a good next step for someone?
Yeah, Instagram is great. We have an awesome newsletter. Our journal, we write an amazing blog that we partner with different doctors and work really hard to deliver an incredible resource on our blog. So if you're curious about a ton of different topics, we've been writing really big, great pieces since 2019. And so we have a huge comprehensive body of work there. You can also follow along on LinkedIn. That's a great place. We're pretty active on LinkedIn, publishing different press articles and news and writing, pieces and referencing those blogs that we're putting out. So LinkedIn, Instagram, those are both great places to follow along.
Cool. And I know some folks in Charlotte. I'm actually going to Charlotte in 2 weeks. And
Cool.
I think you guys have a cedar and stone sauna on a trailer that you are willing to and bring to different events. And so guys who are listening in that Charlotte area, sync up with Andrew and Sauna House, and maybe there's a possibility to connect or collaborate on something.
Yeah, we'll be over at 1500 West Moorhead is the address to that location.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, lastly, Andrew, just to be respectful of your time, I always ask the podcast guest this one question. And that is, if I had said to you, hey, Andrew, you are in charge of designing and putting together a guy's trip. And so you get to decide where we're going to go and what we're going to do. What would you want to lead and where would you like to go if you were assigned to take a group of guys on a guy's trip?
That's an easy one right now. I've been dreaming about this one for quite some time. I love mountain biking and I love gravel bike riding, but I really want to go down to Patagonia and Chile and do a 12-day adventure ride where you camp and ride every day. So you bring your little bivy sack along and you just camp and ride. And anywhere you can find a sauna and a cold plunge, you take it.
I absolutely love that. We're going to Patagonia in 2025, but not to mountain bike. So that's
That's great.
That's pretty wild. I actually, sorry to be on a tangent here, but there is someone that I know who lives in Asheville actually, and I was talking to him about going to Iceland. And he says he knows a company in Iceland who follows you along if you would like them to, and they have a sauna and a cold plunge opportunity on a trailer to follow you along in Iceland. I was like, how wild is that? So as you were saying that in Patagonia, I was like, I don't know the feasibility of doing that, but that would be really cool to sauna
That would
cold
be
plunge
really cool.
every day there. So
That'd be super
hey,
fun.
I appreciate your time, Andrew, and for anyone who's interested learning more about Sauna House and how they can keep up to date on what they're doing, maybe there's a franchise opportunity. Maybe there's an opportunity if you're in the area to stop in on one of those new locations or if you're in Asheville. But I appreciate your time, Andrew. I thank you for what you're doing. And you'd mentioned this is something that came out of just an interest for you to improve your mental health. And I think anyone who's doing that is doing an amazing thing and creating a sense of belonging. So I appreciate that about you and your mission. So thanks for putting good out into the world.
Oh, for sure. At the end of the day, it's all about the customer.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thanks, Andrew. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you too.
Thank you so much for listening. If you got any value out of today's episode, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you're interested in joining us on a guys trip and being part of our community, check out all of our upcoming trips at guystrip.co. I'll see you on an adventure soon.